let's get into it. So first we have Grand Theft Auto 1. I'm gonna put Grand Theft Auto 1 in okay. Came out for the PlayStation, and I played it on the PlayStation at least, and very interesting game. In the first two GTA's, and I do believe London as well. I'm not entirely sure. You get or at least in this game, you get a series of characters you can pick from to play as, and they all have their different areas via being Vice City, San Andreas, and Liberty City, in which each character lives in and works through all these heists with and doing all these crazy missions for. In Grand Theft Auto, and next we have Grand Theft Auto 2. I'm gonna put Grand Theft Auto 2 in okay as well. Um, in this one, you play as Claude Speed, in Liberty City, in which you do a lot of heists and missions for different criminals throughout the game. Again, not one of my favorite games. I did play it a little bit. I don't think I've completed either of the original two GTA's, but I've played them and just played them to mess around in. So next we have Grand Theft Auto 3, which I'm gonna put in good. Grand Theft Auto 3 is probably my favorite game from the PlayStation 2. It had a lot of. You play as a character named Claude, which a lot of people think is Claude Speed from Grand Theft Auto 2, which isn't the case. And where you play as Claude in this one, it takes place in Liberty City, and you work for all these criminals such as Salvatore Leone and his mafia, and then you end up working with the Yakuza after realizing that Salvatore tried to kill you. So, and you go and join the Yakuza and take out Salvatore and do all these other heists and play all these other great missions throughout Grand Theft Auto 3. And you get to see the build-up of Claude's character. But yeah, that is it for Grand Theft Auto 3. San Andreas. I'm going to put San Andreas in good as well. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is the different one out of the trilogy. Great story. You play as Carl Johnson in San Andreas, and you are completely hated on by Officer Frank Tenpenny and all of the police that work for him and Crash. And you come to realize that your old friends, Big Smoke and Ryder, have betrayed Grove Street and are secretly working with Crash and the Ballas and have switched up on you. So throughout the story, you really got to work CJ up to the big fight against Big Smoke at the end of the game, where you take out all these people that are associated with Crash, and you kill Tenpenny at the end of the game, and kill Big Smoke, who just reveals he was only in it for money and he was blinded by the greed. Next, we have Vice City. God tier. Probably, actually, my favorite Grand Theft Auto game on the PS2 next to GTA 3, because Vice City, you play as Tommy Vercetti, and it's a shorter story compared to San Andreas and GTA 3, obviously, because GTA 3 is the main title, but it's, San Andreas has a longer story than Grand Theft Auto Vice City, but in Grand Theft Auto Vice City, you play as Tommy Vercetti, who is part of the Forelli family, and Sonny Forelli had set up Tommy and got him arrested, and Tommy was released from jail, and he ends up doing a drug deal to get Sonny some money, and Tommy, there's an ambush on the deal, and therefore that goes wrong, and Tommy is basically trying to pay back what he owes to Sonny originally, and then ends up saying, no, fuck you, I'm not interested in paying you back, I got all this power in Vice City that you gave me. And so Tommy ends up not paying back Sonny, which causes Sonny to show up in Vice City. So yeah, next we have Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories. I'm gonna put this one right here. Not one of my favorite games in the Grand Theft Auto series, Vice City Stories, but it does give us a bit of a. It does give us the prequel to Vice City, in which you play as Victor Vance, the brother of Lance Vance, who dies at the beginning of Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Actually, he was there during the deal, and Victor is trying to earn all this money because of his sick brother, and therefore he does all these crazy missions and heists as a criminal throughout Vice City Stories. Alright, so next is Liberty City Stories, which I'm going to put right here in OK. I played Liberty City Stories more than I played Vice City Stories. And you play as Tony Ciparoni, who appears in GTA 3. And you work for Salvatore, and you basically are working your way up through Salvatore's family, taking on all these other mafias and taking on all these crazy missions. And I played Liberty City Stories more than I ever played Vice City Stories. And I gotta say, Liberty City Stories and the old school Liberty City was just a beautiful game in general. So next up we have Grand Theft Auto 4, which I'm also gonna put in God tier. Grand Theft Auto 4 introduces us to Niko Bellic. He's an Eastern European, and he comes to Liberty City under lies from his cousin Roman, and all these promises of riches and women and all this, and Niko finds out that it's definitely not anything that he was told at all, and it's quite the opposite for Roman, owing a lot of debt. So Niko's helping his cousin to get this debt paid off, and he ends up working for all sorts of criminals and mobs throughout Grand Theft Auto 4, and it is my favorite Grand Theft Auto to date, Grand Theft Auto 4. It is got a amazing story, game mechanics are beautiful. The free world of Liberty City is fairly small, actually. I remember first playing this and thinking that Grand Theft Auto 4 was a pretty big map, and then Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, and it changed it. And really, after getting older and playing GTA 4 more, I realized that Liberty City in Grand Theft Auto 4 isn't that big. But you do indeed get to have an amazing story with Niko Bellic, as I said. So next is The Lost and Damned, which I'm going to put in good as well. The Lost and Damned introduces us to Johnny Klibitz, who sadly meets his death, to Trevor Phillips in Grand Theft Auto 5. But in The Lost and Damned, we see Johnny, who is the vice president of the Lost MC, under Billy Gray, who is the main president, and Johnny has had a truce with the Death of Angels, which is another banker gang in Liberty City, and Billy gets released from prison and completely fucks it all up, and Johnny's just trying to live his life, and you do all these crazy missions throughout The Lost and Damned. Again, it's a shorter game, kind of like Vice City, that came out as a DLC for Grand Theft Auto 4. The Lost and Damned is the shorter one of the games that came out as the episodes of Liberty City. Anywho, so Johnny ends up doing all these crazy missions for all these different characters, and also his story is linked with Grand Theft Auto 4's main story, in which he meets Niko and does all this cool stuff. So it's really cool to get to play in Johnny's perspective with Niko instead of playing through Niko's perspective. So then you get a little bit of a different outcome from said missions with Niko. Next we have the Bout of Gay Tony, which I'm going to put at the top of good. Honestly, my favorite episodes from the Liberty City game. The Bout of Gay Tony introduces us to Luis Lopez, who is the third character who appears in Grand Theft Auto 4 alongside Niko, in which, in this one you're working for Tony Prince, or aka Gay Tony, who owns the Mason at 9 nightclub, and you're trying to save Tony from all this crazy debt he owes, and trying to save Tony's life, basically, and keeping him alive and keeping him healthy. Louise also has some issues being the main guy for Tony. Basically, Tony's right-hand man for Mason at 9, and Louise, of course, gets into his own sorts of problems with, Tony, and also his own problems at home, and so Louise goes through all this stuff. And eventually, in the end, he kills Ray Bulgarian, who turns out to be the main antagonist, and after Niko Bellic. And I find it crazy that Nico never got the chance to kill Ray Bulgarian, and then having played TBOGT, I understood, hey, at least Ray Bulgarian got what he deserved in the end. And finally, we have Grand Theft Auto 5. I gotta put it here at the back of God tier. I'm surprised, but we don't really have any bad GTA games. I just noticed that they're all not bad games in my opinion. The ones that I have here, I don't know where I'd put London. Like I said, I've never played the two London games, but Grand Theft Auto 5 is very controversial. Where we have GTA Online, which we all know and love and play to this day, 9 years later. But we are introduced to Michael DeSanta, Franklin Clinton, and Trevor Phillips, the three playable characters in Grand Theft Auto 5. And honestly, the story to Grand Theft Auto 5 is kind of bland compared to Grand Theft Auto 4 and all the other games that have come out. They made it different, which is completely awesome. It's a whole new pitch, where instead of working for all these mobsters and all these criminals, instead you're working basically for yourselves. They introduced a lot more heists in Grand Theft Auto 5 compared to all the other games, which was kind of cool, but at the same time, it got boring after a while, in my opinion. Where there's like 5 or 6 heists you get throughout the story mode, and after a while, the heists kind of got annoying. They're all fun, they're all different, but in my opinion, replaying the Grand Theft Auto 5 campaign compared to any of the others, I would rather not really. I get it, that is a whole different story, but I feel like they were kind of holding back, or like there were some things throughout the story that people didn't enjoy. And I'd love for Grand Theft Auto 6, when it comes out, to have an amazing story, different than what we got, but also different from Grand Theft Auto 5, where it's a little too much. The story for Grand Theft Auto 5 is fairly confusing when you first play it, but after you play it again and again, you come to realize what the story is behind Grand Theft Auto 5, and learning why everybody's mad at Michael, and there's the feud between Michael and Trevor, and how that all works out. And you get to learn about Franklin's past as well. Lamar Davis is probably one of my favorite secondary characters. He's also in GTA Online a lot, and it's pretty cool to have Lamar even in GTA Online. And Franklin finally came back to GTA Online, so the only character that hasn't so far is Michael, because we had Trevor. We had Trevor appear for the Series A heist, and yeah. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna leave it here. Red Dead Redemption 2 Episode 3 will be coming out later tonight, so do stay tuned for that. I'm working on finishing the third episode for Red Dead Redemption 2, so that can get all out of the way. But anyways, guys, I'm gonna leave it here for this one, and I'll see y'all later. Peace out.